Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Thursday Night Live. And this week, I am excited to say that we're going to be bringing on Cobra. We've got a representative of Cobra coming on to the show. It's not very often we get an opportunity to get these big brands onto the platform and actually speak to them direct, and give you a chance as well to actually speak to them and ask a few questions that you might have with regards to their products, and especially with the new release just about to come out. So if I can introduce you all to Joe Folker and producer Lee. Joe, welcome to the show. Lee, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, thank you, Dan.
So, Joe, you are the brand experience manager for Cobra Golf. So, just give us a bit of an overview of what you do, how long you've been with Cobra, and then we'll sort of move on to some of the products and things as we go on through the show.
Yeah, so I've been with Cobra for the best part of 8 years now, I think. So, man and boy, and my role really has evolved over time. I started off more on the fitting side of things, so running fitting days through the UK. And now I manage a team of we have 4 guys who run our fitting events in the UK. I work closely with our athletes and ambassadors we have on the playing side, and also with our key accounts and our trade accounts from a training and product point of view. And
I mean, you've pretty much covered everything, haven't you, with Cobra? I mean, you've worked with some of the top players in the world and help fitting them, right the way through to helping people like myself in our pro shops. And what would you say is probably the best part of your job? Is it working with the green grass guys? Is it working with watching top athletes, perform at the elite level? Where does it kind of sit the best with you?
I think with anything, it's maybe a cliche answer, but whether you're a top athlete, whether you're new to the game, when you can work with someone and give them a benefit of that our products can give them, so increase their performance. Now, whether that's helping someone hit the ball 5 yards further or hit more fairways, or if it's helping someone, gain their European Tour card or something like that, there's obviously they all give you the same satisfaction in that respect.
Sure. Rad Speed. New out, just about to launch. Obviously, it's gone through embargo now, and everybody should have seen or will have seen what it looks like, and some of the reviews we've certainly done. We're a little bit late to the party with our reviews, but we've got some more reviews coming out with regards to Rad Speed. But can you give us a bit of an overview of Rad Speed? What's it about? How's it all come about? And where is it right now in the market, should we say? Yeah,
so Rad Speed. So par date or launch date is the 12th of February, so next Friday, that is. So from a top line point of view, if you like, Rad Speed and the name Rad Speed is all based around our radial weighting story, and effectively what we're doing is increasing the radius of gyration. Now, we won't go too deep and make it into a physics lesson, but to give you some sort of top line summary of it, you can see on the sole of the club, they're sort of flashing up there, is where we have our internal weights. And what we've managed to do is, through that radial weighting system, is move and shift weight to the areas we want it the most, so to give them the best performance. And generally there's a trade-off. If you have your weight positioned low and forward for a low CG driver, you're going to give up and have a trade-off of lack of forgiveness, and vice versa. So through this radial weighting system, we managed to move weight low and forward, and also position weight in the back as well to help with MOI, to give you more launch and obviously then lower spin, which is going to equate to more distance. On top of that, things like thin ply carbon on the crown. So 50% of the crown of the club is carbon, nice and thin, nice and light. Means we can, the R&D team work tirelessly to then redistribute that weight where they want it. And then I guess the face of the driver, which we first introduced back in 2018 with our CNC milled face. Infinity face now continues, so still a consistent innovation for us. So what we do with that is we use this computer numerically controlled machine to finish that machine that way, to make sure we can be as precise as possible, get as close to the tolerances as possible, and deliver ball speed from all over the face.
And then what about when you move away? Let's move away from driver now. Then moving into like the Fairway Woods. I mean, is that of a similar sort of product? Is it similar sort of materials that we're using for that?
Yeah. So the the story continues, if you like. It's still all around radial weighting. It's still all around manoeuvring that weight to give the best performance benefit we can in fairways and in hybrids, and actually the same in irons. Obviously, the shape of an iron is different to that of a driver, but it's still positioned that way. In the iron, we position it with extreme heel and toe weighting to allow us then to deliver some high MOI, some low CG, and a lot of stability as well.
Yeah. One of the things is like with companies and things like that is that you're trying to thin out. Let's go back to the driver. You're trying to thin out that face as much as you possibly can. I mean, how far does that go? I mean, are you kind of at the limits with that now, or where does it go with the face?
Yeah, I think obviously you're governed as to what you can do from in terms of how thin you can make something, how fast you can make something. The core. I'm trying to think when it was, probably about 10 years ago, when there was that introduction of the illegal face and all this that came through. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about working to those tolerances, and obviously, generally, most manufacturers, the club face on the driver, if you like, is finished by hand. So by using this CNC process, what that allows us to do is make sure we maintain full control over the consistency of that and make it as thin as possible. And obviously, to a degree, you need to make sure it's sustainable as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about like where you guys see yourself within the market of amongst other brands. The sort of guys of TaylorMade. You've got the Callaways, the Pings, the Titleists. From a price point of view. Whenever I'm stocking out my pro shop, obviously I've got Titleist, which is of $499 is the recommended retail for a driver now. Likely to possibly move to sort of $449 at some stage, I'm sure. But you guys always sat in that little bit of a lower price point of around sort of $369. I'm talking UK now, so pounds.
Yeah.
People from America might be looking at it slightly different in dollars, and Australia and places like that. So there might be some differences, but certainly Cobra has always sat itself just a little bit lower. Does that have anything to do with the fact that you were part of Acushnet back in a number of years ago, and they always try to keep the price point a little bit lower than maybe Titleist, or how does it work?
Yeah, I guess to a degree that I think in recent years we've seen huge growth in terms of our market share globally, especially in our metalwoods category. I mean, talking to the UK, the UK market, we're now a clear number 4 brand in terms of our metalwoods. We're closer to number 3 than number 5 is to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we really are chasing down that top 4 and the products. So I think nowadays that the price, because so many people like yourself, if I came for a custom fitting with you, I'm going to hit maybe a Callaway driver, maybe a Titleist driver, maybe a Cobra driver. I'm going to see the distances. I'm going to have a better understanding through things that you do and through you telling me around what distance I'm getting. So the price point really is almost secondary, I guess. And I think the fact we sit at a slightly lower price point and our price point of $369 for the Rad Speed driver, that is the price. It's not $369 to sell at $329. We're pretty consistent with being a one price fits all in that respect. So I guess, yeah, we're a cheaper price point, but we perform as well as, if not better than everybody else in that respect. There's no bad drivers these days. No one makes a bad product.
No, absolutely right. One thing I wanted to ask before we move on to maybe some other questions from the audience that I know they've got a few to ask, but you sit on the panel with regards to R&D. So the creation of these products and things like that. You have a chance to have a bit of input into what happens. How does that work? Is it more that you get a lot more sort of feedback from tour players? Do you go to Greengrass and ask for feedback from average golfers, professionals, PGA professionals? So, and then the secondary to that is that, do you talk about price point and how that sits within the marketplace when you're developing these drivers or any?
Yeah, I think I'll be doing a disservice to our fantastic R&D team to say I sit on the panel, so to speak. But no, certainly we're involved in feedback sessions, and we have catch-ups probably every other quarter, a couple of times a year, just reviewing products where we are. And I think it's always surprised me how far ahead we work. Like everyone, you're already looking at 2023 products and working towards them. And we're just launching, Rad Speed, which obviously is 2021. That's just the way of the world. So yeah, I mean, from us, I guess the R&D team, their aim initially and first and foremost, if we look at a driver, is what's the, excuse the pun, driver to making the best driver? Is it distance? Is it forgiveness? Is it spin? Is it club speed? There's so many different variables. So their job is to create something and bring to creation, if you like, what's going to deliver the most that the consumer wants and needs. And then on top of that, obviously there's different areas of R&D in terms of people who would look at, what color do you use? What does it driver look like? Then you've got the marketing side of it in terms of how do you promote, how do you push, how do you market this driver? Tour players, of course, huge input. Working, we don't have the biggest tour staff, but obviously the guys we have are ones who are really visible, who we believe cut through the clutter. You've got the likes of Ricky and Bryson, who you can speak to and gain insights from them on what they're looking for in a driver, what do they like the look of, and they have huge input into that product as well. Yeah.
And then you talk about Ricky and Bryson, and I mentioned Lexi Thompson in the same sort of group there, I suppose, over in America. There's a big focus on American players, or the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour with Cobra, and you've got some very impressive players in your group there. Where does that sit in the European market? How do you, who do you work with on the European Tour? Because it's not quite as, I would say, as big as what you've got over there. It feels like there's a lot more money gone into the American market than it has certainly the European Tour. I mean, how does it work over here from Cobra's point of view there?
Yeah, so I mean, from a UK point of view, we have a partnership with the PGA Euro Pro Tour, where we're their official partner. We have a squad of 10 players who we support on that tour, and for us, really, it's we develop and want to get in early, work with these guys through as they progress up through their career. And I mean, the Euro Pro Tour has been fantastic in terms of players it's produced and what they've gone on to achieve in terms of Ryder Cups, majors. Right the way through. So we're at that stage of we work with maybe you could say the stars of tomorrow. Build up that relationship, work with them, and work and climb the ladder with them, so to speak. But outside of that, from a European Tour point of view, we just signed Ewan Ferguson, who plays European Tour, Challenge Tour, great player. Had him in Puma last year. We worked with him. We moved him into Rad Speed product. Someone who I think set up to have a really good year.
Yeah, and I like that. I like the fact that you guys, because it's hard for these young kids coming up through to sort of make their way up in through the ranks and things, and money is always tight generally when you're starting off and trying to get sponsorship and help, and having support from companies like yourselves, I mean, is huge. I've seen it firsthand with certainly my brother coming up through. I know, Merrick, who I work with has helped him out over the years, and it's just, it does help massively. So I do take my hat off to Cobra for getting involved at such a younger age, should we say, or the sort of lower ranks within the PGA bracket. So, I just want to move on now, Lee. We're going to move on to some other questions that have come in. I've kind of exhausted some of the questions that I've got for you, Joe. So let's get a couple of other questions that we've had in from the audience tonight.
So the first one I'll bring in is actually out the comments, and it's someone we both know pretty well, and that's Rich Woods, who's the head pro at Dainton Golf. And he asks this question: when changing the loft of the driver, how much does it change the face angle?
Yeah, so obviously that would be in the drivers, so Rad Speed drivers or SC drivers or F9 drivers. We use a MyFly 8 sleeve, so you have that adjustable loft option like most drivers do these days. Yeah. So we can give you 8 different settings in that hosel. So you can go plus or minus 1.5 degrees, and you can add 3 draw settings. So the draw setting will generally give you shut it by about 1 degree, and obviously if you're affecting the loft plus or minus, you'll be affecting the face angle, but relatively small amounts, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. What else we got there, Lee?
So
Thank you, Richard.
So I'm going to bring in a guest I've got first guest lined up to ask a question. So here's John. Welcome to the stream, John.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, John. How you doing? All right.
John,
Yeah, very good. Thanks you. Very good.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on, mate.
No, honestly, I'd just like to thank all of you for doing what you do on a Thursday night. It's really, really entertaining for us golfers who can't get out on the course at the moment. So thank you very much.
No problem, mate. No problem. Right, what have you got for us?
So I had a question for Joe, actually. I just wondered if Cobra are ever going to start to produce a golf ball.
question. I mean, as things stand at this moment, no, we don't have any plans to do so. I think the golf ball market's a huge market. I think the time, the effort, cost associated with bringing a ball to market in terms of the R&D and the process you would go through, at the moment, that's not a focus for us. I'd say never, but certainly not in the near future.
I think it was 1999, I think, was one of the last times that Cobra actually brought out a golf ball, which was, I think, more of a distance ball.
I actually spoke with the Cobra veteran who Dan Merrick, who did give me the inside scoop. We did have a Cobra Dista ball, I believe it was called. And
Dista,
that was,
right.
1998, 1999 time. We're under the Acushnet umbrella then. So I guess access to golf ball R&D was probably slightly easier than it is currently.
I think the reality of that, John, is that the golf ball market, as Joe's rightly said there, it's so busy. It's so busy with so many good brands out there creating such a, it's all, I wouldn't say it's a flooded market, but there's a lot out there that that Cobra could focus in their minds on other things, I suppose. But
I guess as well, if you think of, Ping don't make a golf ball, do they?
No.
They make everything but a golf ball, if you like. So for the minute, no plans, but say never.
Well, no.
There you go, John.
Again, just thanks very much, guys, and have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you
John,
very much
all the
for
best.
coming on, John. Take care, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, cut him off too early.
It's a good question, that though, isn't it? It's a good question. It's one that came up quite a bit when I put this feeder out for people to have a chat about it. The golf ball was definitely one that was brought in a lot. Just out of curiosity, what ball do Cobra use when they test their equipment?
That is a good question. I'm not 100% sure of the answer. I
know Ping. They certainly did last year when I heard it was they used the Titleist Pro V1 when they test their golf.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly, so I wouldn't want to give you a false answer. No.
Right, Lee. What else have we got there?
Okay, moving on. These are questions that were submitted earlier on, and the first one is: how successful has one length been, and why don't the other manufacturers do it?
Do you want me to go down?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
one length. So we brought one length to market in 2017 with our F7 one length set. I look now at our Rad Speed one length irons. The change has been huge in terms of how much we've learned in that time. The amount of R&D that goes into creating products as a whole is obviously huge. And the more feedback you get, the more things you make, you can learn and improve. And the one length irons have improved massively over time as everything does. I mean, back in 2017, we had our F7 iron and our F7 one length iron. The F7 one length iron was 55% of our sales for the year. So we sold more one length irons than we did variable length irons that year. So huge, massive start. Obviously, it was new, it was fresh. No one really had ever done it before. I know there's a couple of other, brands, Edel and Wishen, who do offer one length or single length product. It's still successful. It's still a big part of our business. It's currently around 25 to 30% of our iron sales are one length iron sales. And it's something that will continue. Obviously, we have Bryson, who's the one length golfer, if you like. I think the challenge for other brands to do it is, how do they bring it to market? How do you tell that story? if you haven't got someone you can lean on as your ambassador to talk to it, that's probably a challenge. And at the moment, obviously, it's just Bryson using it on the PGA Tour. I think in time you'll see more and more players who are coming up through the ranks now and trying it and liking it. I think for amateur golfers, it's a must try. I'm obviously biased in saying that, but I think you should always rule out using one length rather than try and rule it in to your fit, if you like. I mean, if you have a one length fitting down, if someone comes to you for a fitting for a set of irons, generally they're going to hit a 7-iron. That's it. Effectively, you're guessing that they can hit their 5-iron as well as they've hit the 7-iron. You're guessing their 9-iron is going to perform as well as the 7-iron performs.
Yeah.
If you just try one length, then you're going to know how far that 5-iron goes. You're going to know how far that 9-iron goes. If you get the gap, if you have that gapping and it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, we're not saying you have to use one length, and everyone should use one length, but it's certainly a great opportunity. The design of one length is all around making the game easier.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense as well if you think about it about golf as we know it. If golf was invented now, why would you make your clubs different lengths? You're adding a complication to it. If you can keep everything, you can keep one variable the same, then it's going to be a huge benefit. So I think certainly it's one that we always try and encourage people to try. Yes, it's different. If you've used variable length clubs for 20, 30 years, of course, you're buying a set of irons, it's a considered purchase. There's an element of risk associated. I would quash that by saying you can hit 3 clubs out of the 7 you're going to buy in the fitting as opposed to just hitting one.
I got to say, from my experience when fitting one length, and those that have actually taken the opportunity and actually gone with it, tried it, it's been successful. I've sold one length clubs off the back of getting somebody to really try that product. It's just hard to get people over the line. And going to like Cobra's sort of point of view, are you a little bit disappointed in some ways that not maybe more tour players have ended up trying it and gone with it? Like, it's only seems to have been with Bryson. It seemed to, it didn't really kick on with any extra tour players wanting to use it and do it. Is it disappointing from that side of it?
I think it's a difficult one. Bryson's obviously a unique guy in terms of what he does. And Bryson didn't use one length all his life. He played variable length and was, he wasn't hacking it around, and suddenly one length changed him from a 10 handicapper to winning the US Open. I just think it's difficult at tour player level where we're at now, that there's not all those players have got to that level using variable length clubs. It's a big change to make for those guys, and they're all pretty good. They're hitting the middle of the club every time, or majority of the time. But I think in time, as more and more people start with one length or are introduced to one length, say that the feedback and from the feedback and the reviews we do, the feedback on most one length clubs is people who have tried them, like them. It's not that people try them and think, oh, I can't use them. So I think in time you might see it evolve more. I think Bryson was obviously is our one length mascot, and was, if Bryson won, you would see a spike in one length sales. The last 10 months, whenever you hear about Bryson winning, the last thing you talk about really is his irons, because the focus shifts to him smashing it 400 yards off every tee. I think there's definite benefits to one length. For me, it's always about, and seen firsthand, it's getting someone to try it. That's the thing. If someone's got an open mind just to try it, so it's not gonna hurt you. If you try the 5-iron and the 9-iron, it's literally asking you to hit an extra 6 shots, and you'll know. Yes, it will maybe feel a bit awkward, but the amount of people that try it and say, you know what, I never thought that would work, but that makes sense, or I like that, is great.
I mean, with what's Bryson using right now? What heads has he got on in his one length? What's he?
So he's in a Forge Tour one length at the moment, which he's had for a couple of years now. He did move into more of a bladed club, but he's currently in a Forge Tour.
Right. Okay. Well, that, I think, pretty much covers one length. I think it's a fantastic product, and one of which I would like more people to test it. I would like more people to test it.
Yeah.
Do you think, and this is a question that I've just saw in the comments there, but do you think people with Cobra, would they ever go down the line of having half a set one length moving into, so let's say the 4-iron, 5-iron, 6-iron, 7 all in the one length, and then blending down? I get that question asked to me a lot, but it's something that I know that Cobra's not really pushed for.
It's something we can offer and service through a custom order, of course. The challenge, I guess, why we wouldn't maybe promote it so much is effectively then it's not one length, because it's 4 lengths, if you like. Yeah. But no, it's an option, and that's, I think, generally the people's initial feedback and thoughts are, it makes sense in 4, 5, 6, 7 iron. Does it make sense in 8, 9 pitch? And that's where, again, you have to have that trust to test it and see if it works. If it doesn't work and you want to just go 4, 5, 6, 7, then you can have the rest of your set in the variable length setup. We offer that, as I say. I know it's not always that way. Sometimes you find as well that people have variable length 4, 5, 6, 7 iron, and then have one length 8, 9 pitch gap. So it's not always as far skewed into the longer irons as you would think.
Yeah. Okay, Lee, move us on. Next question. What have we got there?
Just on sort of my point for one length, the first one length I ever hit was that hybrid when we tested it. And at first it just felt like ridiculous. I was like, what is this massive head doing on a junior club? But what I found as a handicapped golfer is the control I had over it was far better than the control I've got over a normal length hybrid. So that's the issue. That's one of the things to it, is control, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what I notice a lot when we do testing and we use launch monitors, you'll notice with one length, generally the dispersion or the curvature, if you like, on the golf ball is minimized through one length. We get much better results in that. And as I said, in the advancements we've made from the first set back in 2017, that the lie angle was the same through the whole set. Whereas now we adjust that lie angle. So in the longer irons, it's going to be slightly more upright versus the 7 iron. The shorter irons, slightly flatter versus the 7 iron. And that's all, again, just to make sure we get that ball flight and trajectory correct. But as you say, and obviously the reason, I know some people when it first happened said, well, I love my set of irons, I'm just going to cut them all to the same length. That won't work, based on the fact, obviously, that we add weight to the longer iron heads, and then we remove weight from the shorter iron heads to allow that distance gapping to work.
Do you think they'll ever move one length into the Fairway Woods and beyond? Not in the immediate future, no.
I mean, a 7 iron driver would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm just thinking like a 5-wood or a 3-wood, having something like that. But
yeah, I mean, I think the one length hybrid certainly is, I think, is a great club, and that's, I think personally, always a really good way to introduce it, because people, like you said, Lee, you look at it and think it's a junior club. There's no way that's going to go how far it should go for the loft on it. But when you hit it, you think, oh, actually, it does make sense. It is easier. But for the minute, no plans to go 3-wood and driver in one length.
Okay, I'm going to bring in another guest, a guest that's been on before, and this time he looks like he's wearing a T-shirt, which is helpful, and this is Sean.
Hey, guys.
Sean, how you doing?
Not too bad, yourself.
Yeah, very good. Right, you got a question?
Yes, it was with all the manufacturers trying to push the limits on distance and low spin and all that. How do you feel about the USGA trying to do the rollback? How does the manufacturers feel about that, especially Cobra? And
yeah, I guess it's obviously a relatively new finding, the distance report that they came out with yesterday. I think, like anything, every manufacturer, we all work to tolerances. And everyone's trying to use of better words, push the boundaries and get as close to them as they can to get the best performing products. And you've seen now, if you look back at the last few years of drivers, there's been a definite shift towards, improving aero, the aerodynamics of a driver to increase swing speed, to then increase ball speed that way. I guess it's one of those things. It's a level playing field, so it's not like they're just punishing Cobra or just punishing certain manufacturers, and it would just be a case of the guys in R&D who are, fantastic across the board, who will have to work through and find ways to best get the most out of the products.
Yeah. Well, did you know this was coming, Joe? Did you hear this sort of on the grapevine, or has this just come out?
No, I obviously I saw that it was first talked about probably 18 months ago when they announced they were doing this distance discovery report. And obviously I saw the news of it yesterday. I saw a couple of players' reactions to it. And yeah, I guess I've not really seen too much else on it. It's something they've talked about for a while. I don't know. My personal view is you can't. How do you govern it? It's not, if you're the longest player or if you hit the ball the furthest, it doesn't mean you're always going to win. We know that. You can see that across the board. Bryson's a great example of someone who hits it a mile, and people will say like how he destroyed to win the US Open. But if you looked at his performance that week, he didn't lead the field in strokes gained from driving. He led the field in his approach play and his putting. So it's not all down to how far you hit it.
Cool.
Yeah, good one.
My thing on that as well is it might affect someone like Paul that doesn't hit it as far, but he's quite accurate. If they roll it back, it'll put him at more of a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if you bring everyone back 10%, you still have someone who hits it. You're always going to have someone who hits it further, and someone who hits it straighter. So I think it's very hard to just zero in and focus on distance. If you look at golf courses, if you look at par threes, look at Augusta, the 12th, look at the postage stamp, the 8th. These holes are 120 yards, and they cause the best players in the world nightmares, cost them multiple shots, majors. It's not all about how far you can hit a golf ball. I don't think it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely
right. Thanks again for coming on, Sean. Much appreciated as always.
Okay,
I see you wearing a shirt this time as well. Thank you.
I did see this was the guy who came on last week with his shirt off.
Yeah, Leicester's dress code.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. The comments have gone like, it's nice to see Sean with a shirt on. Sean's on more than Bernie. So just going to go back to a question, sort of, it's on the one length type of genre, so to speak. And it's from someone who's obviously got height problems. So at 6'6" tall, would one length irons be a benefit to him?
Yeah, I'm 6'4". I use one length irons. I think one length irons, sometimes a misconception is that they just come in that stock one length. One length are custom fittable. My irons I have a half an inch longer. So if you're 6'6", of course you can use one length irons. You can use one length irons if you're 5'6". There's nothing against that. Say that the key thing I'd say is get fitted and try them and check they work for you. But yeah, there's no issue with if you're over 6'6", you can't use one length.
As far as I'm concerned, it would just be a standard fit, and then you would blend it in from there, wouldn't you?
It might even be more of a benefit if you think of someone of that height, that when they get to their shorter irons in their bag, they're going to be maybe bending more, having more amendment to their posture. So there's every shameless plug to say definitely needs to get some one length irons. They would be a benefit, yes.
Well, they're definitely worth a test. And
100%, yeah.
In all the fitting kits, I know in our fitting kit we always have a 9-iron in there to be able to test and fit as well. So definitely, if you can head over to get fitted for them, you're going to be able to test those sort of shorter stuff. So
yeah, we have a 5-iron and a 9-iron in all our fitting kits. Yeah. So you can always try it. Yeah.
Good.
I think it's just a case of getting used to the difference in shaft length, isn't it? And getting used to a 7-iron and a 5-iron and a really long 9-iron. So even at that sort of height, the 9-iron would still feel long to them, but a 5-iron would still feel short. It's like anything, you've got to get used to that difference in the shaft length from what is normal.
Yeah. Yeah, you always, it's the loft you look down on, isn't it? You're used to, it feels weird because you're used to seeing that much loft and it not being that longer club. But certainly, try it and see if it works.
So I've got a question on one length, just because I don't know, so I'll ask anyway. Is there a one length option for specialist wedges?
Yes, you can have. Yeah, we do a 56 and a 60 degree in one length. So you can have a wedge in one length, which is an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
right,
moving on. Next question is: how far can technology take a player? Example, with the driving becoming longer and longer.
I think overall as a whole that it can certainly help players. I mean, drivers nowadays not only go a lot further than they did 10, 15 years ago, but the way they're designed and built, you're going to get more forgiveness. You've got more help, if you like. I still think you've got to find the middle of the club and put it in play, but I don't think technology hurts golf. But I guess to that point, it's a level playing field in terms of it's open to everyone, that technology. So it's not just for a certain aspect of golf, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
For me, when I look at this, I mean, it's, the driver technology is so much, I think it's so much more towards trying to get more stability in the heads and, having those off-centered strikes. I mean, if we think about what's happened in the last sort of 3 or 4 years with drivers, I mean, it's a lot of talk about the face and, getting consistent amounts of ball speed across the face, up and down across the face. It's not necessarily all about that optimal position all the time, is it? It's about how does it become more consistent right the way through with bad strikes, and if you're a 260 carry guy or a 230 carry guy, can you still get to 250 or 260 out of an off-centered strike? That's really what I think the focus from what my experience of looking at drivers and things like that. If I rolled us back to, you take your F9, which is a fantastic driver. I mean, we're only talking two models ago.
Yeah. But
there's still players out there that are still absolutely loving the F9, and even the F8 was a good driver.
Yeah.
But if you take now, when you move into Rad Speed and the SZ that you put out as well, I mean, it's all about the face stability, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's been that's certainly what you say spot on in terms of it's not necessarily probably 10, 15 years ago, you hit one out the screws, it goes 280, you hit one out the heel or the toe, you've got gear effect on the face, it's an off-center hit, you're going to lose 20, 30 yards. It's now about making those mishits better.
Yeah.
And that's the same if you listen, I'm sure when you talk to Paul or even yourself at the level you play at, you don't, you want to make sure you miss hits. You want to limit your bad shots, don't you, to make them as good as possible. And that if everyone works on that, making their worst shot better, then they're going to improve overall in that space. So.
Yeah, because I mean, if I think about a round of golf, I might hit one, maybe two, exactly where I want to hit it in the face. I'm never that far away, but ultimately, if pros and tour players aren't hitting the spot on that center spot for their perfect strike, so it might not be center of the bat, it might be more into the toe or more into the heel for whatever their deliveries are. But how often do we actually do it? I want a driver that's going to perform when I don't quite get it right, and that's
exactly
what all the companies are doing right now, isn't it? It's a big focus.
And everyone works around that. And everyone has every brand has a face technology story, if you like. And to say for us, it's all about that. Our CNC milled face, which allows us to have control over what that face is and make sure that you can deliver ball speed from all over that face. So we know everyone's not going to hit it out the middle. Doesn't matter if you're Ricky Fowler or Ricky Gervais, you're not going to hit out the middle of the club every time you hit it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely right.
Golf clubs have middles, do they? Never knew that.
Right, Lee.
So
there must
be
somebody else.
Yep, so I've got another guest in. This is Graham, so welcome to the stream, Graham.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, Graham. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Your show's reached all the way to Rotterdam, Dan, so...
Lovely.
And it's very nice to see the West Country every day when I want to tune in. So, it cheers me up to go back home for a show.
You don't sound like you're from Rotterdam. Are you from the UK?
I'm from the West Country, so yeah. Yeah.
Love
So the question I had really, I've only just started playing golf about a year ago, and I bought myself a starter set. And as the tendency is with quite a few modern golf clubs, the lofts are pretty strong. And I've started to improve a little in my game and pretty much hitting the distances I want to. But what I'm starting to do now is move more to controllability and start to try and get a few shaped shots. And I know Cobra make some beautiful irons, and I've tried a few of them. But I tended to find they were more aimed at power type golf, so getting a few extra yards rather than perhaps something I'm looking for now, which is a little bit more controllability. Is that somewhere where most of the Cobra products are going to be aimed in the future at longer yardages, or are you now looking into the more controlled type of irons to go for customers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question in terms of generally it's the loft jacking and the strong lofts we get in terms of the industry is common across the whole industry. So to a degree, you have to play in that field. So our Rad Speed irons, for example, are strongly lofted. It's a 27.5 degree 7-iron. In old money, that's a 5-iron. But the technology has allowed us to mean that ball will still launch at the right height to give you the shot shape and ball flight you need for a 7-iron. We do have other products which are more neutrally lofted, I'd say. And we have an F-Max range of products, which again are slightly weaker lofted, which are still aimed at being a game improvement or a game improvement category, but they're not as strongly lofted. So it's a case of, I guess if we bring out our Rad Speed 7-iron and it's 34 degrees, Dan's gonna review it and hit it in the net against a Callaway, a TaylorMade, a Titleist, and he's gonna say the Cobra goes 10 yards shorter than everyone else, but everyone else is the same loft, and we're weaker, if that makes sense. So I guess, yeah, the way we go with lofts is all around making sure we can still get the ball launching correctly. But I get your point in terms of the less loft, that obviously then you're gonna, you maybe want a bit more control. Making sure we can still get the ball launching.
Sure. I suppose the other question I've just got on the follow-up then, would you prefer the industry to have set lofts per club? Would that help you, or would you like the freedom to put lofts in whichever way you want?
I think lofts is the interesting one, because there's a fascination around distance, I think, across the board. So everyone wants to know how far their 7-iron goes, and a lot of people will say I hit my 7-iron 150 yards, and that's based on the 7th hole's a par 3, which is 150 yards, and I hit the middle of the green when I played last week. So that's how far my 7-iron goes. I guess from a sort of little moving into a Cobra product we offer, or what we offer in our Cobra products, we have Arcos in our grips. So Cobra Connect, powered by Arcos. Now, if you don't know what that is, basically Arcos is a system which tracks your distance, tells you how far you hit every shot. It's factual data. Do I wish that there was an industry standard loft? There almost to a degree is, because everyone's going to benchmark against competition. I think from a golfer's playing golf point of view, if you look at tour level players, and I'm sure Dan can speak to this from himself and Paul, that you're generally you have a club that goes a distance. It's not a 7-iron that goes this distance. If you have 150 yards to play, that means it's a 9-iron for Dan. It might be a 7-iron for Lee. I think it'd be very difficult to make everyone use the same lofts on every iron. It's an interesting point, yeah.
I think it's important to have an understanding of the clubs that you're using, Graham. So, identify what the lofts are. And even though it might say 7-iron on the bottom of the club, understand that, I've just recently reviewed the pings, and the video will be coming out shortly on that. And, I'm comparing my 7-iron that I use to the 8-iron in the set. And I don't want to pretend that it's not that. At the end of the day, these companies are trying to give you as much forgiveness as they can. They're trying to launch the ball a little bit higher. You've got to think about descent angle as well when you're coming in from, even though their spin levels might be slightly lower, they're getting it a little bit higher and getting that descent angle to steepen out a little bit. So they're giving you more consistency. Again, we talked about face and control across the face, and it's exactly the same in the irons. It's identifying what the lofts are on the bottom of the clubs for what works for you.
I found exactly the same thing. I've actually ended up with quite strong lofted first set of clubs, but actually when I'm going to look to get fitted this year through the improvements, I'm probably going to look to actually get slightly weaker lofted clubs, because I'm almost feeling it's a bit of a false positive for me that I'm hitting my 7-iron in a particular distance. Well, it's not really a 7-iron, I'm really hitting a 6-iron, and I know that. And it's also a little bit different in my mindset coming into agreeing with that. But yeah, no, thank you very much, gentlemen. But I'm sure we've just seen the longest 7-iron hitter just in your room there, Dan. You just popped in for a moment.
It won't be long. It won't be long.
you can adjust loft from a build point of view at fit level as well. So if you wanted your clubs if you wanted to buy a set of Rad Speed irons and you wanted them to be 2 degrees weaker in loft, that can be done. We can amend that through the build process. So.
Yeah, Graham, thank you very much. You take care. Cheers.
Thanks, Graham. The thing with that loft thing as well is a lot of it's down to how you present the club as well. So if you're quite flippy, you may need that stronger loft to help you get the ball going forward as opposed to up. So there's so many variables when it comes to lofts. It's like there's not a standard answer to it, is there?
No, you're right.
It isn't. No.
Okay. Next question. Any new utility iron coming out?
So we launched our King utility iron last April, and that continues through the line in this year. So it's has an adjustable hosel. We have 3 different heads of 2, a 3, and a 4. We also offer it in 1 length as well. And yeah, that continues in the line. It's current product for 2021.
Yeah, it's a good product.
Really good product. Fast off the face. And there's been a massive trend back to utility irons probably the last 3 or 4 years from the old driving iron went out of everyone seemed to fall out of love with it 10 years ago, and now it's come back round. So
when you say about that, are you talking about that from a tour level, or are you talking about that as just the general golf?
I think across the board. I think they just sort of seem to disappear, and then say the last few years we first bought one out. I think back in 2017 was when we re-entered the utility model market, if you like, utility driving iron market, and they're really popular now.
Okay, Lee, there must be a putter question on there. Lee, is there a putter question? I feel like
a bit like that one.
There you go.
I got one for you.
You've got that one. So
how are you planning to move forward with 3D printing then?
Yeah, so we obviously in November we announced and launched our partnership with HP and Parmatech. We celebrated that by bringing to market the 3D printed putter, which was a limited edition product. It was, that launch was all around celebrating that move into 3D printing, and 3D printing is something that features in our Rad Speed irons. It gives us unlimited complexity from a design point of view. So for the R&D team, the ability to use 3D printing is obviously a quicker process. There's unlimited complexity in terms of the lattice designs they can make. And for us, that's one of the brand ethos, if you like, is all around game enjoyment. Bringing an innovation. Really, we see ourselves as innovation leaders in the market in terms of the things we do and the things we bring to market. So 3D printing is just another element of that.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, Cobra have never been afraid to test the water, have they? With lots of different types of materials out there, and I mean, to see the 3D printing side of it coming through, I mean, it was only a matter of time, and it's in some ways, I feel like it's quite right that Cobra have ventured into it first. Yeah,
no. So we certainly feel that there's a lot of things we do that push the boundaries and push innovation, and all of the things we do for a reason, which is all around if we can create and produce better products to increase game enjoyment effectively.
Yeah, and that probably moves us on to does somebody ask about putter market? Has that come up on the questions there, Lee?
Not preloaded, and I've not noticed anything.
And is it something putters? I've seen it in the comments as we've been going down there. you know, I know they've launched the 3D one, but is there a plan to get into the putter market in a big way? I mean, you can't just dabble with it, can you? It's something you've either got to commit to it or stay away from it, a bit like the golf ball in some ways.
Yeah, no, I think certainly, given what we've just spoke about in terms of leading that innovation in the market and bringing products to market that are going to help people, we're consistent with that along the board. So if and when we chose to enter the putter market, it would be when we had a technology and innovation which was there to aid performance. So we're always looking to innovate. We're always looking to introduce new products to help golfers. So yes, it's one of those things that, you know, we'll continue to work towards.
Good.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, Dan. So did you want to talk about bafflers to sort of finish us off?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, the baffler is, you know, the baffler is the start for me. It was obviously the hybrid. It really goes back to the baffler. And for me, Cobra is the brand that sort of delivered the first kind of product. There you go. There's one that's just.
There she is. Yeah.
I mean, where does it, you know, do you know much of the history on the baffler and where it all kind of came from and what it was all about and where we're kind of at right now?
Yeah, so I think the baffler history, the history of the baffler dates way back, as that picture sort of alludes to, and the reason for it and the technology behind it hasn't really changed. I don't think in terms of the initial aim of those rails that sit on the sole of the club. It's to help with turf interaction. It's to maintain stability through the turf. A way we have it, you know, I'd always describe it as, you know, the rails are there to act almost like fins on a surfboard, or the rudder on a boat, if you like. They're there to cut through, to help with increasing ball speed. As you can see there, they still feature on our Rad Speed product. So we've been synonymous with bafflers, with rails on our hybrids and fairways for a number of years. The technology around them now has moved on from that first photo we saw, in terms of now we have this hollow split rail technology. So you can see on the photo there that where the rails go from black to grey, there's a slight split. And what that allows us to do is then increase face flexion. But yeah, I think the original baffler came way back when from our you know, years and years ago, but they still work. I know Ricky loves rails on his Fairway Woods. He's a big believer of it, and I think generally they make sense when you think about it. They're there to help with that turf interaction.
And there's a product that you've got out which I don't think gets enough love, to be honest with you, and it's the T-rail. I think it's obviously it's something that I've got into a lot of the hands of golfers at Torquay Golf Club and those that have taken the time to take the set out that I've had there to take on the golf course and test.
Yeah,
they've loved it. They've booked in for fittings following on from their sort of on-course experience with it and absolutely loved it. For those players that struggle for speed, to struggle to get launch, I think that hybrid set, which is the T-rail, I just think it works so well.
It's I mean, amazing how well it's done since it launched. Say, probably aesthetically not the most beautiful club to look at versus some others that are made, but the way it performs is second to none. It's designed to be easy to hit. It's designed to get up and down nice and easily. You can see we still have those rails on there through the whole set. So not just on the hybrid, if you went for a combo set, but through the whole set, you have those rails. Hollow head design, PowerShell face, you know, E9 face technology, all based around easy to use. Yeah, as I say, you can hit that all over the face and it will go high, long, straight. I probably need to get a set the way I just spoke about them, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Lee, just a quick one. I've got Gary Smith that's saying on the comments there that we sent a link to him, or I think we sent a link to him for a question. Is Gary there in the background with a question? Have we got his question there? Do you know?
Let me look in emails. I've not got anybody waiting to come in. That's for sure.
Whilst Lee is just having a look for Gary's question there, how long did it take you to get used to the one length iron? I mean, you said that you use one length now. Did it take you a bit of time to get used to it? Because obviously, when did you get into it? Did you get into it early on when Cobra launched them?
Yeah, I moved into it in 2017. So how long did it take me? Not too long. Half an hour on the range hitting balls to get my head round where to stand, how to do it. Okay, this is how I do it.
What was the trigger? What made you go, yes, I need to change the way I play golf in some ways and and put these in the bag?
Yeah, I just I don't play a load of golf. So when I do play, it's generally now play with you're playing with mates, and you just want to get out and have a bit of a laugh and relax. So it worked for me. The distance gapping worked. My 5-iron went 20 yards shorter than my 7-iron, which went 20 yards longer than my 9-iron. So there was a gap that worked. And to be honest, I use one length from 4-iron through to gap wedge. I use variable length or normal length wedges. And yeah, it'd be unfair for me to say my golf's improved. So I don't play enough for it to improve, but it certainly hasn't got any worse.
Okay. Another question for you is the MB-CB combo set that you've had out for probably, I don't know how long you've had those out now, probably good 3 or 4 years. You have the CB-MB combo, which is a beautiful set of irons, and I think is coming towards the end of its sort of reign within the setup of Cobra. Certainly should be coming to the end of its run, I would think, the next year or so.
Its life cycle, yeah, that will be a product that will be due to replace later on this year, yeah. But,
go on, sorry.
I was going to say, so we have obviously we launched the King Tour iron back in November, which was bringing that MIM technology and MIM construction to an iron that came out. Obviously, an iron that's the way it's made is completely different. And what that allows us to do is give the player more feel. So that's almost like a CB shape size iron, more traditionally lofted. And then obviously you've got these forged, or the King forged MB irons, which sit below that effectively. As I say, there is a replacement for them coming. Yeah,
and then the Ricky Fowler product that's just been released. I know that there was 1,500 in the world going out.
Yes, 750 sets worldwide. The Ricky Fowler, the Rev 33 iron. So obviously Ricky had a huge part to play, and the reason the name Rev 33 comes from, it took them 32 revisions to make it perfect for him. Each of those irons is hand milled, the face. I've seen them, they're tiny. I certainly wouldn't fancy standing over that 4-iron on a cold winter's morning. It's a beautiful looking iron. Really, really nice, really clean. Say Ricky's feedback and was instrumental in the design of that, along with Ben Showman, who works with him on tour. He's got them in the bag, and he's using them the last couple of weeks.
And just on that then, so the MB version that you're going to be releasing, I believe, is it going to be similar to this? Is it going to be a sort of a, because the copper sort of a thing that you're kind of heading down towards?
I mean, I say the Ricky irons come in that copper finish, and there are some more MB irons, which when we replace that, you'll have to wait and see.
Right. Okay. Giving nothing away.
Right, I think we've got Gary's question, so we'll let that come in quickly, and then that'll be the end of it from that point. Then
it was how successful was the one length, etc. Well, I think we covered a lot of that, haven't we, with the one length?
Yeah. So I think successful, and I say it's certainly something that's well worth trying. If you've never tried it, or you're unsure of trying it, there's as and when it's safe to do so. From a fitting point of view, then definitely give it a go, because I think there's a lot of people that will be surprised at how beneficial it is for them.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, Lee, I think that wraps us up, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the end of it tonight, Dan.
Right, brilliant. Joe, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us and just grow our knowledge within what you're delivering, your products coming out and the history behind it and one length. I think it's all fascinating stuff, and hopefully everybody's sort of learned a little bit about what Cobra are about, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the Rad Speed will be a big success when they get launched on the 12th of February in the UK.
Yes. No, yeah, thanks for having me. It's great, and appreciate all your help and support, and anything we can do to help or support you, let us know. Yeah, one length, Rad Speed, 12th of Feb, and go and try one length. Go and try Rad Speed, and you'll enjoy your golf.
I've tried the Rad Speed driver, and it's good. It's impressive. So looking forward to seeing it out on the shelves soon. Right, Lee, thank you very much for all your time. Joe, thanks again. Everybody, thank you very much for coming on to the show and watching. And we look forward to seeing you all next Thursday for our next live.